Well, today is Friday, and in fact, we call it Freedom Friday.
Shine, make 'em wonder what you got. Make 'em wish that they were not on the outside looking for. Shine, let it shine before all men. Let 'em see good works in men. Let 'em glorify the Lord.
Well, Jesus said it. He said, "Let your light so shine before men that they will see your good deeds and glorify your Father who is in heaven." And here's the question. What keeps us from shining in a way that people say, "Show me who changed you. Show me how this happened"? And that's what you want. See, domesticated Christians never get the joy of helping someone else discover life in Jesus Christ. But when we live outside the box of a dumbed-down spirituality that frankly is plaguing us today in American Christianity, and live outside that box of utter dependence on God, that's when we can radiate. Now, lest you think that this is about us getting ramped up or hyped up or getting people really kind of juiced up for Jesus, it's not about what we can do. If there's one story that we find repeated over and over in Scripture, one plot line, one storyline, it's that we can do nothing apart from the power of God. The best we can claim is that we're conduits of God's bounty. Today we're going to be talking about being a conduit of God's bounty. But the only way that we can be a conduit of God's bounty and to watch God literally change us so that out the other end there's a light that shines so brightly that people say, "Who is your leader?" The only way that we can do that is to fall in utter desperation and need of God. We must fall down and say, "Jesus, I need you." The wisest among us don't surrender to Jesus Christ at one time, but they surrender every time they feel a sense of impossibility or incompleteness or "I just can't do it." That is the hope of the gospel. Coming up, can God deliver someone literally from a gang into a brand new life in Jesus Christ? Oh, yeah, he can. This is 180 with Karl Clauson. Your life, a new direction. 180 with Karl Clauson. Your life, a new direction. Now, here's the irony. Some of us wonder, God, could you ever let my light so shine before men that they would see my deeds and give glory to you? I mean, that must have been for those first century Christians, huh? No, it's for today. And maybe one of the greatest things that we can do, and this is the uniqueness of Freedom Friday, is that we can feature stories of life change that will spiritually so enliven you with hope. And you might say, "My goodness, if God can do that, I think he can do something in me." I think I got one of those stories with me here today. I'm broadcasting live from Phoenix, Arizona, and we're right to you, Chicago. And I've got in front of me in studio here quite a guy. I'm looking at him right now, and I'm not going to give you his name yet. I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing tats. I'm seeing a tat. He just gave his knuckles rolled over to me that says "State Raised." I'm seeing a guy that's got his hair pulled back, got the ponytail going on, and a cross hanging off of a golden chain, and a man that is lighting up this studio because Jesus Christ is so in him. His name is
Natividad Mendoza.
See, I can't even say it like you. Natividad Mendoza. Let me try to say it like you. Natividad Mendoza. Is that pretty good?
That's close.
That's close. Natividad Mendoza, he's executive director of From Gangs to Jobs. He was a gang member himself until Christ transformed his life in June of 2003. In 2006, Natividad made a faith-based journey to Phoenix, Arizona. Man, he's been here since, and in 2008, he started From Gangs to Jobs. Now, here's what's interesting about Natividad. He was on TV, but not for being a Jesus follower. This is way back at History Channels when they did something called Gangland. Natividad, good to have you with me today on 180.
Okay.
Tremendous.
I'm here.
Yeah, you are here. I love this.
Just to clarify, the Gangland video
Yes.
was featured after I was a Christian.
After you were saved.
Yes,
Okay.
but it was to talk about the gangs in Fresno, which is one of the worst gangs in America.
Are you in Fresno?
Fresno, California, yes, sir.
Were you raised? Did you live there?
I was born and raised there. Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, I've spent some. Here's what we want to know. The beautiful thing about, we call it Freedom Friday, is that we love to hear stories. God radically altered you. What kind of a lifestyle were you born into? Did you know of Jesus Christ, or did you have any understanding of what he came to do as a young boy? What did you start out with?
Well, my father died before I was born, and my mother married a guy who was, pretty anti-God. He drank a lot. He was a fighter. He had killed a couple of people, and he was just, pretty intense.
He
about the
rough.
way
He was
done.
rough.
Yes, he was.
Did he lay a hand on you?
Oh, definitely.
So he whooped
Yes.
you.
Oh, he worked me into submission. I mean, and he would do it. He said in Spanish, te estoy pegando porque te amo. He said that to me once as he was hanging me, and basically left me for dead when I was in Mexico in 1981.
Left you for dead.
Left me for dead, yes.
How old were you then?
I was 11 years old.
My goodness.
Right.
Do you have a relationship with him now at all?
Oh, no.
He's now, has that man passed, or is he still around?
Oh, he's still around.
He is.
Yes.
But no connection with him whatsoever.
In 1985, he killed a friend of mine and made me watch it as he did it. And
Come on. Really?
He really did. And
what was his purpose in having you watch him kill your friend?
I think he was just showing off. I think he was showing off, and it was a pretty nasty killing. He brutally killed this guy, for about an hour. He was beating him until he was dead. I came back to the States shortly after because people in the community where I was living out of Mexico had accused me for taking part in this murder,
And you were a bystander, Natividad. Right now, I can see it in your eye. You almost replay it, even though it's been a number of years ago. The pain doesn't go away overnight, does it, Natividad?
No. I know I'm forgiven. I know God has forgiven me and moved me forward from this. But when we take part in a situation like this, regardless whether or not we did anything ourselves. When we watch videos, where somebody beats somebody up on YouTube, or we watch somebody, getting shot or stabbed, and we don't do nothing about it, we're guilty as well.
We're complicit in some way.
Right. And even though I didn't do it, I definitely was a part of it. And I had volunteered to bury the body after he was dead because I didn't want to be accused of the murder myself. And anyways, that was why I ended up coming back to the States, where shortly after I started my career as a criminal in 1985. By December, I was in a prison for minors.
Now we're going to get into that career as a criminal, and here's what I want to know. Natividad Mendoza is with me in studio. I'm broadcasting from Phoenix. You might be wondering, wow, how does a guy with this kind of an accent, yes, he's from Fresno, most recently transplanted to Phoenix, but spent years in Mexico. His story of transformation, how God altered this man. You're going to hear it straight ahead on 180 with Karl Clauson, Your Life, a New Direction. Don't stop believing. 180 with Karl Clauson, Your Life, a New Direction. Yeah, Satan tries to pull the wool over our eyes, and sometimes we can think, oh, can God really work in me? Can he do a change? There's two things that are going to come out of our time here today with Natividad Mendoza. One is you're going to get an unbelievable dose of the grace of God and the goodness of God to change lives. But here's one thing I don't want you to lose. I don't want you, nor would Natividad want you to do this. Don't look at his life and go, wow, isn't that amazing? But hold it up as a mirror to you and say, if the grace of God can work in Natividad Mendoza that way, God, you're not done with me yet.
Amen.
Isn't that right, Natividad?
That's exactly
so
what it is.
That just enlivens me, man. That just excites me. I'm broadcasting live from Phoenix, Arizona, right to you, Chicago, and we hope that your heart is open and ready to roll here today. Natividad, share your story. Somewhere you broke and came to the end of yourself. What did God use to break you of pride, recklessness, gangster mentality?
You know, it's kind of ironic because he used the same system that kept me incarcerated for all these years to actually transform me. It was through the sales of an 8 ball of cocaine to an undercover cop that it all began. I went to court.
Well, let's define our terms here. 8 ball of cocaine for the for the soccer moms that are following Jesus. What's an 8 ball of cocaine?
It's an eighth of an ounce.
Eighth of an ounce, and it's enough to get you some time if it's any good.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. It's enough to get you some time. Well, I was going to court, and I basically gave up all hope of ever getting out of prison because of the history that I had and the involvement in all the different junk. I mean, that I'd had. I had really given up. I went to prison 16 times, and I was a compulsive failure, and I really had just been sick of failing. And the only place I had ever been successful in my life was in these 11 prisons that I had traveled through, over this 18-year period, and I had respect, and I can live life with my head up. Only place ever in my life that I had felt like I belonged, even though I never wanted to be there.
Was prison.
Was prison.
Was that a family to you, Natividad?
No, I didn't like the people in there that much.
Well, then what in the world made it feel like you belonged?
Because they respected me. They respected me, and they didn't treat me like I was less than. Out here in society, I had everybody judging me because of my past. I had everybody judging me because of the way I looked. I had people that would walk around me. I mean, then I had people that were less gangster than I was, that had no respect for me on the streets because they don't know what respect is on the streets, and in the joint, people knew who I was. I had a reputation. I was a person of status, and there who had done my work, and earned, this different level.
In that culture. In
that culture, right.
16 times in the clink?
16 times.
Well, what happened to the 3 strikes you're out deal, man?
Well, in California, it's a little bit different from some other states.
Okay.
They have a parole system that you have to do 4 years of parole either in prison or out. And I wasn't good at following the rules outside, so I did basically 8 years of parole violations in prison. I went to prison 14 times on parole violations.
Well, you're just a piece of work, aren't you, Natividad?
Well,
and that's to the glory of God. So that's the whole point here. God broke you and brought you to the end of yourself. Before we need to go to break, tell us the story about how God began to break you.
Well, like I said, it was one incident. I mean, as the Damascus story goes with Paul, I was going to court to select my jury when a judge said that he gave me an opportunity to, instead of selecting my jury, to give me a trial by judge. It's called a slow plea trial.
Yes.
Where he would find me guilty for the sales of cocaine. He would find me guilty of the priors, the strikes, all these different things, and then if I admitted to this, he would strike the strike from the record, and then instead of sending me to prison, he had this leeway that says he could give grace on extraordinary circumstances. He says, after reviewing your case, he says, I found extraordinary circumstances, you being locked up your whole life. He goes, if you allow me the opportunity to send you to this program, would you give me your word you'll at least try to change your life? And that was the day that I gave my life to Jesus Christ.
What happened the day you surrendered to Jesus? Everybody's got a unique story. What happened inside your heart and soul, Natividad?
Well, I mean, I really, really battled with it for quite a while. I went back to my cell. I told the homeboys what had happened, and I just kind of paced back and forth, trying to acknowledge what happened. In fact, the very first thing I was thinking about is how I was going to kill myself. I was thinking about getting out and doing a suicide by cop,
Wow.
Walking into a store, a bank with a gun and having them shoot me. But instead, I just kind of tried to understand what had happened. Was it grace? Was it God? Was it chance? Why would a judge do this? Because there was no reason whatsoever that a judge would give me anything but the maximum prison, which I wouldn't even be out of prison yet.
You'd still be in.
I'd still be in. I would still be in until 2014. Right.
The grace of God shows the power of God. Natividad Mendoza He's executive director of From Gangs to Jobs. More of his story and how it relates to your life so that you don't have to have one foot in the ditch at all this weekend. This is 180 with Karl Clauson. Your life, a new direction. No, there's not a better way to get you launched for the weekend than to hear the power of God's goodness and His grace. Oh, if come on, give me a vote. Here it is. You can vote with me. Just if you just love hearing stories of God's power to change lives, train wrecks like you and me, just put your hand in the air. Your right one there. Keep one on the wheel. There you go. That's it. I saw that vote. So good to have you with me. This is 180 with Karl Clauson, Your Life, a New Direction on Freedom Friday. Sometimes we get an opportunity to hear story, and oh, Nelly, have we got one for you today. Natividad Mendoza, he's in studio with me, and wow, what a story. We've raised without a childhood. Isn't that true? You were almost raised without a childhood.
Well, I mean, basically from the time I was 11 years old till now. After being abandoned in Mexico, I never finished school. I never went past the fourth grade. So I could hardly read and write now without the help of a bunch of people standing beside me and making me look good. I would not be in the position that I am now as executive director of From Gangs to Jobs.
Yeah, here's the amazing thing. He's the executive director of From Gangs to Jobs. And I don't know how many friends I've had tell me, Karl, I think I need to go get an MBA to get this thing pulled off, and you've already got a bachelor's degree. You are walking proof positive of God's grace, aren't you?
Oh, definitely. Right. I mean, God can and does use, the foolish things of the world, as He says, in the New Testament. He wants to grab people from the muck and help transform our nation with that. I mean, the 12 people that He walked with were not like scholars or
Yes.
or people who were educated, and through them this world is what it is now.
Yeah. Do you battle today with some of those memories of the past and some of the deficits that you feel like you've had?
I think that if I had not gone through some of the stuff that I've gone through, then I would be in a better place. But then again, God is the one that moves us forward. But there's a lot of different challenges that I went through in my past, including some of the beatings. I've been shot, stabbed, ran over. And now I've gained a bunch of weight.
Yeah, but you're a tough hombre. I'm going to tell you right now, you got light in your eyes and you've got the love of God radiating out of you. But if I'd seen you walking down a street in Phoenix or Fresno and you didn't know Jesus, I'd go to the other side of the street. I'm just going to tell you straight up. And you kind of lived with this. The gangs live with this intimidation factor, don't they?
They do, and it's real hard to live past it. Regardless of
Interesting.
of being transformed. I go to this church, has a couple thousand members in it, and I'm a leader. People know who I am, but I don't know that everybody, trusts me, or that they even acknowledge me as equal to themselves.
Yeah.
Regardless of my life being transformed and me following Christ, and living it out. I mean, the organization that we have From Gangs to Jobs is based out of our house. We were blessed enough to buy a house that has 2 parcels, and one of the parcels is From Gangs to Jobs, and the other one is where we live at. We don't have any money to buy another facility, so we use our own home.
My guest is Natividad Mendoza. He's the executive director of Gangs to Jobs. He's got a 3rd or 4th grade education. Is that right?
4th grade was the last grade completed, but I was a straight F
Well,
student
that's
back
good
then.
because 5th grade for me stunk. But you were straight A's up until then?
A straight F student.
Oh,
in
straight
the 4th
F student
grade.
up until then. I thought, all right, he had a great start. He was straight A's through 4th grade. No, so basically you were out when you got started. Oh, what an example of grace. He's the executive director From Gangs to Jobs. Incredible heart for God. I'm broadcasting live here from Phoenix, Arizona, right there to you in Chicago, and what a story. Here's a crazy question. You cry? Have you ever cried?
Oh, definitely.
So and it's just I'm just being shooting you straight,
No,
man.
no, let's be real though. Let's be real. I don't cry often, and I didn't cry as a gangster.
Okay, as a gangster, what do gangsters do when their heart is broken? Do they just get harder?
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If you're real, there's a lot of wannabe gangsters. A lot of people
Yeah.
that think they're gangsters. You know what I'm saying? Because they
My
get.
my producer's like that. He wears his pants low, and I'm kidding him right now.
No, I'm being real. I know guys, man. They got tattoos on their faces, tattoos all over their arms, and they walk and talk like they're hard, man. But they can't bust a grape, you know.
Can't bust a grape. Is that street lingo right there? Can't bust a grape?
I learned
Because
it.
I'm gonna use that in Chicago when I get back there. I'm gonna go to the South Side and say, man, you can't bust a grape. All right, my guest is Natividad Mendoza. You do cry, and this is an interesting angle, but I feel like the Holy Spirit wants me to go here right now. Does crying help you process the pain of the past?
I don't have much pain of the past any
Tell
longer.
me about that.
When I was in my cell, right, and I gave my life to Christ, it was a one-time thing. I'm a very serious, very true man of my word.
I
You
can
know,
see you're a straight shooting
I
boy.
don't play games.
Yeah.
I don't play games. When I was a gangster, man, I lived life to the fullest. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to be the best that I can be, you know, and I was the best that I could have been. I'm not saying I was the craziest, most feared guy in America, but I definitely wasn't
You
no
were
chump.
crazy, yeah.
I would get busy, and as a man transformed, when I gave my life to Christ, I told God, you know what, God, let's do this one time. One time, I said, if I'm gonna be one of these dudes, man, that go in and out of the joint, smoking crack, or finding prostitution, man, and can't do life on life's terms. If I can't do life, what I mean, with Christ on a realistic basis, leave me where I'm at. If I can't go out there and make a difference, go into schools, go into juvenile halls, if I can't go out there and help transform this world, leave me where I'm at. If I'm gonna be worthless, I can be worthless in here. When I said, you know what, God, let's do this, let's move this forward one time.
Mm.
And I haven't turned back. I have not turned back. It was through a verse, Philippians 1:6, where it says, being confident of this very thing,
Yeah.
that he who began this good work in you will perform it unto the day of Jesus Christ. When you break down that verse, and like I said, when you're locked up and you've been locked up most of your life, you overanalyze everything. You know what I'm saying? So I really overanalyzed this verse.
So what's your takeaway? Do you believe that God's promises are real? That when He begins this work, He will carry it on?
But that it had to be. The first thing you have to come to conclusion on understanding here, when you don't know God, right, and you really are struggling, and you've suffered, tremendously. When you think of people who know God, right, and I walk into our Tuki, and I see some of these churches, what I'm saying, and I see some of these people growing up, knowing God, giving their lives to
Yes.
to Christ at young ages, being baptized, and I'm like, that's great. I love that God is working in these kids' lives. You know what I'm saying? But for me, that's easy to do. You know what I'm saying? How about when you're being molested as a little kid? You know what I'm saying? When you're having to eat feces out of a toilet, when you're getting punched all the way across the room, talking about I'm hitting you because I love you. You know what I'm saying? When you're being hung, when you're being abandoned, when you're watching murders, where is God there?
Natividad, was that you, man?
That was me, man. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
your story.
That's my story.
Come on.
How could you find God in that? Being confident of this very thing, that it had to be that He right there, man, is the most powerful part of that verse, because that He means that God exists. You know what I'm saying? And how does God exist for a young man going through that junk? How does a God exist for somebody having to suffer that much every single day of their life? You know what I'm saying? The only way that I could come to the conclusion that God existed is that God saw it, He was there, and He was okay with it. Why was He okay with it? Because He knew that there's a better purpose. God says He works all things for the good of those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. So from the very beginning, I was always called, and God was going to use all that junk. And I'll tell you the truth, man. Without that junk, I cannot become the man who I'm becoming.
When you are becoming a man. Does Es Cristo Poderoso mean anything to you?
That means Christ the powerful.
Yeah. And you believe it, don't you?
Oh, believe that. There's nothing about the Bible that I don't just believe, but I have to live it out. I have to live it out or go back to what I was doing. If I don't live it out, it ain't real.
Right on.
Amen.
Natividad Mendoza, coming up. What in the world does gangs to Jesus mean for you wherever you are in Chicago. This is 180 with Karl Clauson, your life, a new direction. Yeah, so we got people calling in, and I'm getting tweets and Facebook messages. If you'd like to get a taste of God's grace, hang on with us here. If you want to hear more about this show later, go to kc180.com, kc180.com, and there you'll get an opportunity to hear my guest, Natividad Mendoza, yet again. What a great story of God's grace in your life. I'm overwhelmed sitting across from you here. It's a gift. We've got a gang problem in Chicago.
Yeah, I've heard.
You want to go up there and straighten it out with me on the way back home?
I would love to go out there and give a hand. I mean, yeah, you guys have issues in Chicago.
Yeah, we had issues in Chicago, and it's tough. What do you say? How do we address the toughest issues in our culture, even gang-related stuff? How are they reached? What do you do in your ministry?
The best ways to reach them is the hardest way to reach them. It's opening yourselves up. You know what I'm saying? It's trusting that these people are real people. I mean, and that they can be trusted. You know what I'm saying? And the only way for that to happen is for you to open up your door to your house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Letting them, sit in your couches, introducing them to your wife, to your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Leaving stuff around. And you know what? It's a big risk. I mean, I've had people steal my stuff, and first thing that goes through my wife's head is just call the cops. My wife works for the Supreme Court.
Oh, now hold it a second. Hold the phone, Chicago. I've got a guest in studio, been to prison 16 times, witnessed guys getting killed, literally, and we shouldn't laugh about that ever. But the fact is, you've been redeemed by Jesus Christ. You've done all this time in the clink, and your wife works for the Supreme Court, Natividad?
Yes, sir.
What are you doing marrying a woman? Is that the way you stay walking with Jesus?
I don't know how it happened, man. My wife is one of 5 people in the state who audits courts.
Unbelievable. All right, so here's what I want help with. We got good people. These that are listening right now in Chicago, Natividad, they're all in Jesus followers. We're a new show up there, 180 is, but we're already gaining some great traction. We got people that are all in with Jesus. Some that have never ever tasted what you're talking about. But how does your story relate to people that have maybe never even tasted it? How would you encourage a person that's just kind of walking? We talk about the fence all the time, but it's real. It's just not going all in with Jesus. What would you say to them, having literally being forced to eat feces and watch somebody be murdered and be hung by a stepfather, attempted to be hung and killed? What would you say to someone because of the way that you can see the life of Christ? What would you say to them?
That's a great question, and I try to answer that question all the time. As I was going through my ordination process, in my last paperwork that I had to write, before I got ordained, I mentioned that my mission, I believe that God was calling me to bridge this gap, because our suburban partners, they have Jesus, they know God, they're more well versed than most people I ever know, but at the same time, they're living in these very comfortable gated communities. They're going inside their chariots, from their chariots to their grocery store, from their grocery store back to their chariots.
What do you want them to get, hydraulics in their suspension system?
No, you know what I would love to see? I would love to see people do what Jesus did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? See, Jesus went from Nazareth to Galilee to Judea, on foot. He did all these things on foot. And you know what? You know what's a trip is that we in the church, we call our communities, right? Our communities are the people in our church, the people that live around us. We build our churches, in pretty nice areas.
I so agree with you. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
And we buy our houses in nice areas. So when we're going out to outreach, we're outreaching to people that look like us, talk like us, and then and those are the people that we're bringing into the church, right? Um, um, but when I look at what Jesus did, he did it a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, yes, our communities are our neighbors, but Jesus' community was all over the place. It was like all the Middle East. He was just walking around, and everybody he encountered, regardless of what race, what nationality, what religion, whatever it was, he was walking around and he was ministering, transforming lives. Lepers. I mean, what is leprosy now? Leprosy for me is those crackheads, man, or those people doing meth, picking at their skin. Ain't nobody trying to get near those people. Ain't nobody trying to get near those people. Why is it that the church ain't going nowhere near them? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the fact is, man, that Jesus Christ, he came, brought 12 rugged, tough-necked people out of boats and collecting taxes. He brought all these people out to transform the world. He didn't bring a bunch of scholars out. He didn't bring a bunch of people. Yeah, he could have, definitely could have. And I'm not speaking bad against anybody in any economic
Nah,
status.
you're okay. You're safe.
What I'm saying
Is let's be
that
Jesus.
let's get out there and be the church, man. Let's be the church. I'm saying, and let's not be afraid of those people holding the signs up at the side of the road saying, "I'll work for food." Let's encounter those people that we see at the Quickie Marts or the Circle K's or whatever. Let's encounter them and just love them. Don't try to share all of your different religious views with people, man. Just love on them where they're at.
And God will transform
And God
hearts.
will transform hearts with them, man.
Natividad, Mendoza, everyone. Coming up, how this is maybe one of the greatest examples of living undomesticated and wild in Jesus. I'll spike it when we return on 180 with Karl Clauson. Your life a new direction.
And now today's new direction with Karl Clauson.
A great example of a spiritual revolution. Natividad, Mendoza. How in the world do they get in touch with you? We've already got people calling in and tweeting and wanting to know how do I find this guy? Give them the website.
You know what? You guys could all look me up on www.fromgangs2jobs.com.
Say it again.
www.fromgangs2jobs.com.
That's tremendous. Natividad Mendoza, you have been a massive encouragement to people today all over Chicago. Your life radiates. And one of the things that I said at the very start here is that if we're going to live undomesticated, we've got to have this vision that our lives can shine so brightly before men that they'll see our good deeds and glorify our Father who is in heaven. And that is exactly the way God has hardwired you. The future for what God has for you is amazing. The days ahead are rich, and I can see it. And from all the people in Chicago that have heard you today, us down here in Phoenix, thank you to you. Thank you for letting God use you. Thank you for being bold and being unashamed with the good news of Jesus Christ. It's a blessing. If you want to hear more about this show, previous shows this week, we've been talking about living undomesticated. Got some powerful, powerful shows this last week. Go to kc180.com. kc180.com. Everything is there. Talk to you next week.